Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, a Trigger 'em Tuesday edition of the Daily Pulse. That's right. I'm here in my WellPoint studios, in the WellPoint studios, chatting with you and this empty chair. But that's all right, because that means nobody will get between us and our important conversation we're going to have today. It is Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. We're marching forth with a really fun show. A lot of interesting political news happening here in the Mill City, and it's breaking more quickly than we can keep up with at this point, especially when it comes to that high-profile Lowell Belvedere district. We're going to talk about that, and we'll talk about tonight's Lowell City Council meeting as well. We'll start with some national things. Tonight, the President of the United States is going to address Congress on the heels of last Friday's either long overdue showdown with President Zelensky of the Ukraine, or as some would say, a disastrous showing by the President of the United States with President Zelensky. We'll talk a little bit about that and see what you think about it and what the American people are thinking about it. But first, let's thank our Daily Pulse sponsors. Of course, Ray Booten, who is a licensed realtor in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. He's a certified appraiser in both of those states as well. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home, a business, a commercial property, Ray Booten is your man. You can find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. Thank you as well to our friends at WellPoint. We're coming to you from the WellPoint studios. And WellPoint is the only health plan offering health care benefits exclusively to Massachusetts GIC members. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. So thank you to WellPoint. Thank you to Ray. We've got a bunch of other sponsors to thank as well. We'll get to all of them in just a little bit. I'll start with some feedback, talking about the Daily Pulse and doing this edition today. Brendan and Lowell chimed in yesterday, reached out, said the Daily Podcast is fantastic. Keep up the good work. All right, we appreciate the feedback, and we're gonna keep up the good work as well. We're here 5 days a week dropping information for you folks, and we certainly appreciate you guys watching it. Brendan and everybody else, the audience is growing steadily between those of you watching it on our InsideLowell.com, on our YouTube channel, but also downloading the audio podcasts through the whatever podcast provider you use. Interestingly enough, the shows that I do solo are doing better numbers on the podcast channels than a lot of the other shows, probably because I've got a face made for radio, and maybe people just like listening to me instead of seeing this ugly Greek mug. But that's all right. They're missing out on some of the charts and the graphics and videos that we bring you. So to each his or her own. Want to start, before I get into our discussions for today, a couple of corrections from yesterday's podcast. We had Melanie Gilbert on from the Lowell Sun, and she was talking about Jack Kerouac and how she just didn't get it. And she said, she brought up the example, said, if he was such a good writer, why were there never any Hollywood movies made? She asked me if I could think of any, and I couldn't think of any. And then an alert viewer, a loyal viewer of our podcast, shortly after the podcast was dropped at noon, texted me and said, you realize they've made 2 movies based on Kerouac's books. One of them was actually called On the Road, a 2012 movie, and the other one was called Big Sur. But what was interesting, so she sent a link, and I went and I looked at the trailer on YouTube for the On the Road movie. It starred Viggo Mortensen and Kristen Stewart of the Twilight Saga fame. And in 2012, that was like right in the midst of her, dare I call it, stardom through the Twilight series. The movie itself was not a big commercial success, kind of, if neither Melanie nor I remembered it, and probably a lot of you didn't remember it, that's the evidence there. But I guess it made its debut at the Cannes Film Festival in Europe and was popular there, as these kind of campy, indie films are. But that's a good cast. Viggo Mortensen, you remember from the Green Book, was the most recent movie that I remember in him, a very good movie where he played I believe he played the chauffeur who was driving an African American accomplished pianist on a tour of the United States, encountering, the racism of the day. But again, who would have thought Viggo Mortensen and Kristen Stewart in a movie about Jack Kerouac? One other correction that I need to make is Melanie and I were talking about how, other than the Belvedere district, which yesterday morning had the entry of Erin Gendron into that race, otherwise it was really quiet in the rest of the Lowell political arena. There was an at-large candidate. There were some other names that had bounced around. But I said, in terms of the district councilors, you're not seeing much in terms of challenges. Completely forgetting that District 8, the Upper Highlands District, the one represented currently by John Dakota, who's also seeking re-election, does have a challenger. As James from Lowell pointed out, don't you read your own reporting? I do, but I'm old, James and everybody else. Sometimes the brain forgets. But Francisco Maldonado, a now retired Lowell police officer, we reported back on February 3rd, 1 month before I completely forgot that he was in the race. I broke the story that he was running in District 8 for city council. I even got a quote from Cisco. I've known him as Cisco forever, and that's what he kind of calls himself anyway. But I wrote the story, got a quote from Francisco Maldonado telling me why he's running and looking forward to it. 1 month later, I completely forgot. Sorry, Cisco, I apologize. We're going to bring him on in now that he's officially entered the race. He actually sent out a press release yesterday to everybody else in media, so you'll start seeing it pop up elsewhere besides Inside Lowell. But if you want to learn more about Cisco's candidacy, there is a story on the Inside Lowell website. There's more breaking political news in Lowell as well. But first, let's talk about tonight, the President of the United States. Look, you can't go 2 slides on social media without seeing something either praising the man or predicting the end of the world, and somebody saying how much they hate the man. And in light of the press conference that went completely off the rails last Friday with Ukrainian President is it now Volodymyr? He's now added an O. He was Vladimir Zelensky this whole time. Now he's Volodymyr, V-O-L-O. Did he buy a couple of extra vowels with those missing billions of dollars that we sent him? I don't know what happened, but the guy, Little Churchill, as I derisively call him, because some folks compared him to Winston Churchill, had a chance to sign a deal that might bring along peace for his country, and he either blew it up or the President of the United States was such a jerk to him and he blew it up. What do the American people think about that? Well, we don't know. There's been no polling yet on it, on how Americans have reacted to that. That could be sign number 1 of what the polling shows. But remember last week I told you about this Harvard-Harris poll, 2,000 plus respondents, and it touched on Donald Trump and his first month or 2 in office. The poll was released at the end of February. It's now March 4th, and with Trump, events change every day, so who knows what the effective things are. But as of the end of February, Donald Trump was at a popularity level that he's never been at before, not just in this poll, but in other polls, even the ones that show him underwater, showed his favorability ratings a little bit below his unfavorability ratings. He's climbing in those rankings. And in particular, when you go issue by issue, the popularity of his stance on issues, his policies, is much more popular than even the man himself. Not surprising, the man himself is kind of a brash ass, for lack of a better term, but his policies are popular. And as it relates to Volodymyr Zelensky, Little Churchill, check this result out from the Harris-Harvard poll. Do you want Ukraine to continue the war against Russia or negotiate a settlement with Russia? So 28% say they want to see Ukraine win the war. To win the war, they have to continue the war, right? Regain that lost land and whatnot. But 72% say it's time to negotiate a settlement. Okay? Even the Democrats. Look at that column. It's on the left of your screen. 61% of Democrats say it's time to negotiate a settlement. 80% of Republicans. 73% of independents. So the overall number there is 72% of Americans say it's time to negotiate a settlement. So if you really think Volodymyr Zelensky got the best of that exchange on Friday, we'll see. We'll see as more polling comes out if those numbers that we just showed you change. But prior to last Friday, the American people are like, it's time to end this stupid thing. It's time to stop funding it. It's time for American taxpayers' money to stop going there. It's time for Ukrainians and Russians alike to stop dying. It's time to try to negotiate a peace. Overwhelmingly, almost 3-1, 72% to 28% say that's what they should do. And then the side poll off to the right is, do you favor or oppose Donald Trump announcing direct U.S.-Russia negotiations to end the war in Ukraine? 60% favor it, 40% oppose. Now here you see a little bit more of a split, right? And I think the reason for that is people are like, well, you got to have Ukraine involved in the discussions, which, yeah, obviously you need it, right? Remember when the Camp David Accords, when then President Jimmy Carter helped forge peace between Israel and Egypt, he met separately with Egypt, he met separately with Israel. Eventually they all met together and ta-da, you've had peace between Israel and Egypt for, well, what are we going on? 40, 45, 46 years? 1979, I believe, the Camp David Accords were signed. But, you see it, even there, most Americans and most independents, 53 by a 53 to 47% margin, say that it's okay for Donald Trump to enter negotiations with Russia, direct U.S.-Russia, it doesn't say Ukraine, negotiations to end the war in Ukraine. So this slide is telling you right here, the American people clearly want peace. So why are you all out there on Facebook waving your Ukrainian flags and changing your profile photos and stuff and applauding the guy who's got a path to peace that involves the United States, and he blew that deal up for the third time. For the third time, he passed up a chance to sign that mineral agreement that would have been the first step in this. Do you guys want war? Do you guys want endless wars? Is that what it is? 28% of you apparently do. I guess you're okay with the fact that so far no American soldiers are there. But, little Vlad, right? Little Churchill told you, oh yeah, now you're okay. You got an ocean between you. But pretty soon that war is going to come to your shores, which really set off President Trump. As soon as Zelensky said that, Trump said, all right, I'm done dealing with this little man. I know you guys hate him. I know some of you hate him. Not as many of you as used to hate him. There's a lot more of us who like him now, and I'm going to show you that in a quick second. But even if you hate the man, you can still root for common sense policies, right? You can still say, all right, I begrudgingly give him that he's helping forge peace in an area that's seen 3 years worth of senseless war right now. And you're now at a stalemate. Nobody's gaining ground or whatever in this battle. People are just dying for no reason at this point. Everybody knows how it's going to end. It's going to kind of end the way where it is now. But can we negotiate a lasting peace so that you don't have this going on every 5 to 10 years? Remember, Putin invaded Crimea in 2014, then does it again in 2022. Who were the presidents then, by the way? Somebody remind me. 2014. Oh, Barack Obama. That's right. 2022. Oh, okay. That's right. So in Trump's 4 years, there was no Russian invasion of Ukraine. And now he's trying to stop this one and negotiate a peace. Why aren't we supporting it? Well, actually, we are. 72 to 28%, we are supporting it. One other poll that I want to show you here, and this is the approval ratings for Donald Trump. This is that Harris-Harvard poll. And I showed you some of this in my podcast last week, as a matter of fact. But look at those approvals. 52% of the American people either strongly approve or somewhat approve of the job Donald Trump is doing as president. 43% either strongly disapprove. By the way, the 11%, that smallest number you see on your screen there, that's the strongly disapprove. And 32% somewhat disapprove. Donald Trump's above water. Harris-Harvard is a left-leaning pollster. 2,000 plus respondents. Folks, in polling, that is a huge sample size. A huge sample size. And I believe when you get into the methodology of it, you'll see that they actually sampled more Democrats than Republicans, and then threw in the independents as well. But look at the different populations. And, you know, we talked about this again on last Friday's Daily Pulse with Michaela Hondras McCarthy, a.k.a. the hyphen. Look at the skyrocketing popularity of President Trump amongst African Americans, 33%. Now, that's still way underwater, but it's a lot better than the 15% that prior Republicans were getting. Look at the number amongst Hispanics. Over there, the right-hand column. Go down a little bit. Hispanic people polled in this. 50% approve, 43% disapprove. That, my friends, is a stunning number, and it should be a wake-up call to the quote-unquote resistance, and especially to Democrats. You're done if you've lost the Latino population to that degree. I mean, look at the youth, right? 18 to 24-year-olds, 40%. That's unheard of for a Republican. That's unheard of for a Republican in my lifetime. I can't say what it was previously, but women, 47 to 45, right? This is the guy, Donald Trump is the guy who kind of put three people on the Supreme Court who helped overturn Roe versus Wade. That Democrats ever since then have been running on, this is the big win for us now. We're going to win elections all around the country. We're going to sweep Republicans out of power. How's that worked out for you? Even among women, he's above water. Look at all those, screenshot that. If you're watching this on your phone or your computer, screen capture that. And look at those numbers. And then ask yourself, where do you fall with your peers? Lowell? Massachusetts? Everybody in the Mill City, our surrounding communities, Greater Lowell, everybody in Massachusetts, no matter where you're watching from. Look at those numbers. Right on the right of your screen, there's a demographic breakdown that fits you. Black, Hispanic, Asian, urban, suburban, rural, age groups, 18 to 24, 25 to 34, yada, yada, yada. Look at all those numbers. Democrat, Republican, Independent. If you're Democrat, you are clearly out of the mainstream at this point. You know, Scott Jennings, who if you watch him on CNN is gold, he's comedy gold, but he's also informational gold, keeps saying the Democrats somehow managed to end up on the 20 side of 80-20 issues. Issues where 80% of Americans agree, 20% disagree. Democrats almost always end up on the 20% side, including last night when the entire Democratic United States Senate, all those members, voted against a bill that would have forbidden biologically born men from competing in sports against women, protecting women in sports, Title IX. And every single Democratic senator voted against it, with one of the biggest shows being made by our senator here in Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren. Democrats, how do you always end up on the wrong side of these issues? And are you on the side with the American people here, the consensus? And I know polling changes, people fall in and out of popularity, but some of those issue-by-issue numbers, which we'll get to you in coming weeks, are staggering, especially the Ukraine issue, as you all lose your mind over little Churchill getting a little spanking that I, for one, think he deserved. But even if you don't think he deserved it, 72% of Americans are saying it's time to end this bleeping war. Why do you keep fighting it? Is your hatred of Donald Trump, your TDS, that intense that you feel the need to fight even a peace initiative? Lowell, Massachusetts, I ask you, where do you fall on this issue with Donald Trump and his popularity? And where do you fall on these issues with Ukraine? I'd love to hear from you. You can leave your comments on YouTube. We'll share them in upcoming episodes. Leave your comments on Facebook when we post it there. Leave them on InsideLowell when we post them there. Massachusetts residents, Lowell residents, I want to know, are you out of the mainstream with the rest of America? I'm pretty sure Lowell and Massachusetts numbers won't match the national numbers. We're a hotbed of Democratic, left-leaning activity here in Massachusetts. I'm pretty sure the numbers aren't going to match. But then again, in November's election, Donald Trump saw a bigger percentage gain of the Massachusetts vote than any other state in the union. Now, he still lost by a lot, but you're talking about a 70 to 30 loss in 2020 and probably 2016. He was a lot closer in 2024, picked up more percentage points plus for Donald Trump than any other state, any of the other 50 states in the union. But I'm just curious, how far away from the mainstream is Lowell? How far away from the mainstream is Massachusetts? You're tuned into the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse on this Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. We're going to bring it back to the Mill City to look at tonight's Lowell City Council agenda and look at a surprise announcement regarding another Lowell City Council candidate, a District 3 City Council candidate. Let me just quickly thank our sponsors of the Daily Pulse. Of course, Ray Booten, licensed realtor, certified appraiser in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. Thank you as well to our friends at WellPoint. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Thank you to Washington Savings Bank, banking that feels like home. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. TMI Properties, it's TMI Tuesday. You noticed the post on Facebook earlier this morning. If you follow Inside Lowell, TMI, you find quality and value at every price point. Find your perfect space with TMI. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to Greater Lowell, Southern New Hampshire since 1925. The Greater Lowell Community Foundation, improving the quality of life in Greater Lowell through strategic, impactful philanthropy. Francis E. Preventure Insurance, the agency people have trusted to insure their most valuable assets since 1982. And, of course, by the Massachusetts Pirates, bringing all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Mill City. Pirates season opener, and happens to be their home opener as well, is March 21st at the Tsongas Center. All right. Yesterday morning when we chatted with Melanie Gilbert, we talked about Erin Gendron, daughter-in-law of former city councilor, school committeeman Steve Gendron, announcing her candidacy early yesterday morning. Last night, a fourth candidate announced his candidacy for Lowell City Council in District 3, the Belvedere District. And this, too, is a familiar name. Dan Finn, a member of a well-known and a very large Lowell family. The Finns are everywhere. It's hard to go somewhere in the Mill City without running into one of the Finns or somebody associated with them. But Dan Finn has announced his candidacy. Did so, he was trying to hold off another month or so. And somebody alerted me to his Facebook page, where there used to be a Dan Finn for City Council Facebook page. And it's been up there forever. It's been dormant since 2018. But you remember Dan Finn ran for Lowell City Council in 2017, the year of the high school debate. Where's it going? Where should it go? And who should serve on the city council to finalize that decision? Dan Finn was unsuccessful in his bid, but the Dan Finn for Lowell City Council Facebook page stayed alive and even was active a little bit into 2018. And then it just went silent. Still there, but silent. And then yesterday, he changed that page. And made it clear that he's running for city council. So I reached out to him. We spoke. And if you go to InsideLowell.com, there's a story there. I think I titled it, Finn Makes It 4 for Belvedere, the number 4 for Belvedere. But Dan Finn is now in that race as well. So now there are 4 candidates, and maybe a 5th if Ronald DeBerto stops fighting people on social media and actually gets down to mounting a campaign and focuses on Lowell. But you've got a really good race developing. The incumbent, of course, is Cory Belanger. Belinda Duran, new to the political arena, but not new to Lowell's community and being active in various organizations. She announced her candidacy in January. Erin Gendron yesterday morning. Dan Finn yesterday afternoon, the word came out. 4 very viable candidates. There's districts where you can't even get one challenger, and we didn't get any challengers in 2023. Belvedere happened to be one of those, but nobody wanted to challenge John Leahy. But since Leahy stepped down and the council appointed his replacement, Cory Belanger, in July of 2024, we've known this was going to be ground zero for the Lowell City Council election. Belvedere usually is ground zero anyway in one way, shape, or form. But you have 4 legit candidates. So now how does the Dan Finn entry affect this race? I was theorizing yesterday that, well, Cory Belanger has his loyal block of voters. He usually runs pretty well in Belvedere, especially when it's an at-large race. Last time I think he finished in the top 3 of at-large in Belvedere, but didn't garner enough votes in other districts to leapfrog 𝐓𝐫𝐢𝐠𝐞𝐫, and he finished just outside the council in 4th place before then getting appointed to the Belvedere district. But, Cory's got, he's a proven vote getter. Are those enough votes to get him over the top in a head-to-head race? That remains to be seen. But then you got kind of Belinda Duran and Erin Gendron, who I speculate are probably going to draw from the same pool. So as of yesterday morning, my thinking was, well, Cory Belanger, by the benefit of the fact as an incumbent, but also based on where his voting base is likely to survive the preliminary election in September and get into the general election, the runoff, against whoever survives the Duran-Gendron race. Dan Finn's entry changes that dynamic. Dan Finn was more closely aligned with the Cory Belanger voters in 2017 and currently, I think, than, the Duran-Gendron side of the aisle in Belvedere and throughout the city. So I think Dan Finn draws away from Cory Belanger. How much does he draw away? Can the 2 of them get enough votes to square off in a runoff? Will the 2 of them divvy that pot enough where neither one of them gets in there, and the other side, Gendron and Duran, get into the runoff? Do Duran and Gendron siphon so many votes away from themselves that they can't get into the general? A lot of really interesting questions. It's going to be fascinating. It is ground zero. Again, Belvedere is always ground zero in the Lowell City Council, and no disrespect to anybody who gets into the race anywhere else, any of the other challengers. Poor Francisco Maldonado, who I forgot yesterday. But see, I'm giving you plenty of love today, Cisco. Everyone's going to watch this Belvedere race. And by extension, the Belvedere race, having new candidates in that district race, will probably drive turnout to a very significant level. And those people also get to vote on the at-large city council race, which will feature Eric Gittier, Rita Mercier, and 𝐓𝐫𝐢𝐿. Again, plus first-time candidate Sisto de Jesus, who's a well-known guy. I saw him Saturday night, as a matter of fact. We spoke. We'll get him in here one day and get him, introduce him to you. But, there's some legitimate candidates now in this race in Belvedere. And I think it's going to have a spin-off effect on the at-large race, both in the city council and in the school committee, where the at-large race features 2 incumbents and at least 1 challenger. Our friend Danielle McFadden is in that race. We believe that Jackie Doherty and Connie Martin will seek re-election, though neither one has publicly made a statement to that effect yet. But man, we're going to have some fun times in November and now in September. I'm going to have to add an extra chair here. I usually can get 3 seats plus the host seat here at Inside Lowell in our WellPoint studios. We're going to have a 4-way debate, I'm hoping, to try to organize at some point. This is going to be a lot of fun. And I hope you folks out there stay with Inside Lowell, because as you've seen already, when news happens here in Lowell, especially on the political arena, you get it fast and you get it first here at InsideLowell.com and now on the Daily Pulse podcast. All right, before we wrap up, tonight's City Council agenda. Again, we talked a little bit about it yesterday with Melanie Gilbert from The Sun, but tonight's agenda features another executive session regarding Sal Lopoli and those parcels of land that he was developing, thinking of developing, hoping to develop in the Hamilton Canal Innovation District. As Melanie and I both theorized, we think there's a buyout negotiation going on here. I haven't had it confirmed. Corey Belanger was in here last week. He said he thinks there's still an opportunity that Lopoli gives a little compromises and pitches a different type of structure there that might be amenable to the council. Who knows? It's executive session, so we're not privy to those discussions quite yet. But the fact that there's yet another executive session tonight tells me that we're probably looking at more of a buyout than actual significant movement by Sal Lopoli on his design that might appease enough city councilors to have this thing go forward. But, hey, maybe tonight's the night this saga finally ends, and one way or another we find out Wednesday morning or shortly thereafter the fate of those parcels. Other motions of note that jumped out to me, motion 5.5, I'm going to take them in order here. Co-sponsored by Councillor Noon and Councillor Corey Robinson, a plan to increase, they want to know the city manager and what the Lowell police plan is to address the increased violence in the city. I hope that plan increases starting to kick some ass on Beacon Hill at the State House, in the governor's office, and starting to push them to put people in freaking jail. Yeah, we know what the Lowell police is going to do. They're going to increase patrols in problem areas. They're going to assign more resources there. They're going to do more community policing, yada, 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 yada. We know all this stuff. Policing isn't getting reinvented in 2025. Been around forever. The most surefire way to reduce crime is to put criminals in jail. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, folks. And we just went through a period in this country, in this Commonwealth, and probably here in this city of Lowell, where people convicted or charged with minor crimes were getting a lot more leniency than they used to. Certainly, we can't really throw the book at 18, 19, and 20-year-olds anymore, because you got to be 21 in Massachusetts to have committed a serious crime, right? But there are a bunch of other crimes that we basically told police to ignore it. Social justice issues, right? Well, how's that working out for the people in those communities? How's it working out for the people in the Acre, Lower Centerville, Lower Highlands, and then really everywhere else in the city? How is that movement to put fewer and fewer people in prison working out for you? We closed prisons all over the Commonwealth. And now we want a plan to address increased violence. Lowell police can do anything you ask them to do. If the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is going to create laws and allow its district attorneys and its judges to put career criminals, repeat offenders, multiple-time repeat offenders back on the street each and every day, you're not going to stop the violence. Have you seen enough evidence? We tried to tell you this in 2020, 2021. Have you seen enough now? Have you seen enough now to understand that increased violence? There you go. 2 of your counselors told you. How are you going to address increased violence? So they're telling you there's increased violence. We know it is. If you live on the streets, if you live in the city, you know there is. No matter what the crime stats tell you, if you're not reporting crimes or charging people for crimes, your crime stats are going to plummet. But two of your counselors are telling you there's increased violence. The other counselors will tell you that as well. You'll hear it in tonight's discussion. But unless they're going to start putting pressure on other people, and that starts with you, the voters, right? You've got a delegation. You've got a state senator in Ed Kennedy. You've got state representatives in Vanna Howard, Rodney Elliott, and Tara Hong. Push them. You've got a district attorney, Marion Ryan, that comes up for ballots constantly here. Middlesex County DA Marion Ryan. You've got a governor's council that's responsible for overseeing judges and making sure that they put freaking criminals in jail so that law-abiding citizens can feel safe on their street and don't have to worry about, quote, increased violence. Voters out there in Lowell and everywhere else in Massachusetts, are you ready? Are you ready now to acknowledge that if you don't put criminals in jail, you're not going to have a less violent community? And start voting that way. Start holding people accountable, okay? Your representatives will do what they tell you or what they think they need to do to get reelected, because ultimately that's what they want. Every 2 years they got to run for reelection, and they want to get reelected. I can guarantee you none of them is going anywhere anytime soon. Ed Kennedy maybe, but they want to get reelected. But if enough of you call and push them, and I'd like the Lowell City Council to actually discuss this tonight, encourage people to call your state house delegation and your state senator and your district attorney and ultimately your governor and lieutenant governor and your attorney general, Andrea Campbell, and tell them to start doing their job. They didn't get put there to be lenient on people. They got put there to enforce the laws, to make the laws and enforce the laws, and then to make sure that they're enforced properly. It's time to do it. Time to do it. I hope Councilor Noonan and Councilor Robinson lead that charge with our state delegation and everybody else. And by the way, you might want to throw a nudge towards Congresswoman Trahan and others in our viewing audience, Congressman Moulton, and our 2 U.S. senators as well. Because a lot of that narrative, happened on the national, it started on the national level. And even now, there are people fighting efforts to get more serious on crime. All right, motion 511 tonight, co-sponsored by Councilor Eric Gitcher and Councilor Danny Rourke. Invite Skanska and Perkins Eastman to explain the Phase 3 delays to the Lowell City Council. Well, they explained the delays to the school building committee last Thursday night. Now we know about them. They found problems with the subflooring, the foundation. It's going to delay the project by at least 3 to 4 months, bet on longer. It's going to probably drive the cost above what was allowed or what was budgeted, and that will fall all on the Lowell taxpayers. We know all this. Maybe this is an opportunity for other counselors who weren't on that school building committee or part of that discussion last Thursday to ask some follow-up questions to see exactly how this happened. Why weren't tests done on the ground, on the foundation back in 2016, 2017, and 2018? Why are these surprises? I can guarantee you Councilor Gitcher is going to ask these questions. He doesn't need me to prod him. He's going to ask this. Jim Dowd, if he's there, whenever. I don't think the discussion will happen tonight. This is to invite them to come at a future meeting. But we'll see some drips and drabs of this tonight, I'm sure. But when they do come, it'll be fun. I guarantee you Councilor Gitcher will ask the questions. I hope the other councilors do as well. I hope some of the councilors who made this decision happen, who helped force the reconstruction of the high school in these archaic buildings that have seen ground either not done properly or have seen ground erosion to the level that is now a concern and needs to be shored up. I hope they start to get a little bit more involved in, calling out their mistaken opinions back in 2017. Last motion on tonight's City Council agenda, and this is a good one. This is why I love City Councilor Rita Mercier. Motion 5.12, filed by Lowell City Councilor Rita Mercier. She wants a report from the manager on how many city employees work from home and why. She didn't, no, she was very political in asking the question. She didn't say have the city employees write a list of the 5 things they did today, like Elon Musk did with Doge. She didn't even ask all employees to do it. But she wants to know how many city employees are working from home and why. We're 5 years post-COVID. On March 15th of 2020 is when Governor Charlie Baker shut down the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and by extension, the city of Lowell and all the other communities. And people stopped going to work, even in private industry, except for the fast food workers, the food service workers. Oh yeah, the liquor store workers as well. They were allowed to do things. The essential industries, right? The cannabis shops stayed open as well. But, you know, it's now 5 years later. People should have gone back to work by now. How many city employees are working from home and why? How productive are they? Can they be as productive working from home as they are working in an office? Attending meetings in person as opposed to Zoom? Hell, we've still got city council business being done via Zoom, all right? Now, if a counselor can't be there but feels like zooming in because they're away or is sick and doesn't want to, I get it, it makes sense. But this option to allow the meeting participation to be by Zoom, unless you're sick, do you really need to be there? Do you really need to do it by Zoom? Get there. Let's go. It's time to move past. And it's certainly time for people to start working from the office. In this particular case, Lowell City Hall. Police officers are doing it. The firefighters are doing it. The DPW workers are doing it. Parks and Rec. At this point, heck, even all the teachers are doing it. Nobody's doing remote teaching. But who is working from home and why? And are they as productive? I love you, Councilor Mercer. That's a great motion. I would have never thought I'd see this motion on a Lowell City Council agenda. This is downright Dogish, right? We'll call it LOGE, the Lowell Office of Government Efficiency. But I'm impressed with this motion by Councilor Mercier. I'll be watching the City Council meeting tonight. We're going to talk about it tomorrow morning. Lowell City Manager Tom Golden will be sitting in today's unoccupied chair here for the Daily Pulse. But tomorrow that chair will be occupied by the manager. A lot to talk about with him. It's the first time we've had a chance to talk since it was announced that the City Council would like to offer him a contract extension. I'm going to try to negotiate with him on the air. Let's see if we can get a bargain for the Lowell taxpayers. And by extension, perhaps a bargain in future union negotiations, since there's a lot of concern about how other unions are going to react to the manager's pay increase, which so far is in line with what every other city employee is getting. Well, maybe if we can get the manager to scale back the level of the pay increase a little bit. And we know he's going to get a pay increase, but how much? Maybe if we get him to scale it back, maybe we can scale back all the other contract negotiations as well. I'll negotiate for you, the taxpayers, because I'm going to guess the City Council really won't. Anyway, lots more to talk about with Manager Golden. Of course, the high school, the rapidly developing disaster that is the Lowell High project. I'm going to give him a chance to say, I told you so. Lots of other things to talk about with the manager as well. And whatever happens, who knows what other surprises we get at tonight's Lowell City Council meeting. But that's tomorrow. We get the pod squad on Friday. I can't remember what the heck I have for Thursday. Hopefully not an empty chair again. Hopefully I've got somebody in here with me. But as you know, each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, the Daily Pulse will be there for you at noon on YouTube. Actually, a little hint, 11:55. I always set it for 11:55 on YouTube because then that triggers everything else that falls into place. But InsideLowell.com, you can watch it there. You can download the audio podcasts as well. You can even see our teases on Facebook and Twitter. So till then, I hope you all have a great Tuesday. The weather's getting milder the next couple of days. Look forward to seeing you again with City Manager Tom Golden on the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse tomorrow. Take care, everybody.